Lonzo Ball, Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons. These are the names that have been dominating the discussions around the best rookies and potential Rookie of the Year winners. I mean, I even made a video about Ben Simmons and why I think he will be the Rookie of the Year this season. And after this group of three, there are some other later picks that are getting a lot of hype. Josh Jackson for Phoenix, De'Aaron Fox for Sacramento, Lauri Markkanen for the Bulls, and Dennis Smith Jr. for the Mavericks. But there is one rookie drafted in the top 10 who isn't getting enough talk at all. He's an international point guard prospect that stands at 6'5", has amazing athleticism, fantastic feel for the game, a great three-point shot, and good defensive instincts. If you haven't guessed already, I'm talking about Frank Ntilikina, the French point guard drafted 8th overall by the New York Knicks. And while the backlash wasn't quite as bad as when the Knicks drafted Kristaps Porzingis, many Knicks fans felt the team had made a huge mistake by not taking Dennis Smith Jr. And whilst these fans might not have been correct, Frank predicts as a completely different type of point guard, and one that I think will fit very well with the Knicks if he develops as projected. Frank was born in Belgium, but moved to Strasbourg in France when he was 3 years old, and he picked up basketball at the age of 5 before joining Strasbourg's youth academy at the age of 15. It only took him 1 year to make his debut in the senior side, resulting in him playing professional basketball for the first time at 16. This is something that I absolutely love in a draft prospect, and it further highlights some of the problems with AAU basketball throughout America that have been drawing some attention recently. And Mark Cuban even went so far as to suggest that NBA teams should build their own youth academy system. Now, I cannot see this ever happening in its entirety in the NBA, as it would completely ruin the draft and erode even further at league parity. But I do find the idea interesting and think that the NBA should do something to try and create better development pathways for young basketball talent in that country. AAU doesn't encourage consistency in environment, nor does it encourage team play and defense. And these are three of the most important things when it comes to developing good professional basketball talent. And you can see the result in Frank Ntilikina. Being at one club and developing within the same system, with the same gym, same coaches, similar schedule has paid huge rewards. Watching highlights and game film of Frank, and you can see his composure on the court on both ends, and his team first mentality. This is not a guard who comes out with the mentality that he has to drop 30 points in order to prove himself or for his team to win. This is a point guard who puts the entire team first and plays completely within the offense and himself, and it is incredibly refreshing to watch. Phil Jackson made a knack for drafting European players in his 3 years with the Knicks. He famously took Kristaps Porzingis a lot higher than most draft experts had him, and took 6 European players with his 7 possible picks. This is a rate far higher than any other GM in this league. Even R.C. Buford with the Spurs, another organisation famous for drafting European players, doesn't take as many European prospects as Phil Jackson did. Plus, Jackson traded for Willy Herman-Gomez in the 2015 NBA draft by giving up 2 future second-round picks and cash considerations. Say what you will about Phil Jackson's tenure with the Knicks, but he had a real eye for talent and a vision for where he wanted to take the Knicks. I believe this vision was for a team full of team-first players who were skilled passers, could shoot threes, and play basic defense, or at least have the potential to do so in the future. And this is something I really respect in a general manager. The willingness to have a vision and not just sit back and make moves to maintain your treadmill team. Teams like Orlando, New Orleans, and Detroit seem to have very little vision about what their long-term goals are. They simply sit back and make short-sighted moves to appease ownership or their fan base. There are no moves made for a youth movement or all in for the playoffs. They seem to balance somewhere in the middle. And if you look at general managers like Sam Hinkie, Daryl Morey, Danny Ainge, R.C. Buford, and yes, even Phil Jackson, they tend to have or have had a vision about the team they want to construct 5 years down the track. They then try to make moves that help them now and in 5 years. It is this forward thinking, amongst other things, that sets the great GMs apart from the mediocre ones. And just for the record, I'm not trying to say that I am better than Orlando, New Orleans, or the Detroit general managers, because I'm definitely not. I'm simply trying to compare their moves to their peers. Anyway, back to the topic. This vision that these general managers had, and in this case, Phil Jackson had, has resulted in Frank Ntilikina on the Knicks. And it is a fit I love, for the short term and the long term. Just take a look at the point guard stocks for the Knicks, and we see a young point guard who's best known for memes in Ron Baker, and 2 old point guards well past their primes in Ramon Sessions and Jarrett Jack. and the latter isn't even guaranteed a roster spot. The starting point guard spot is up for the taking. I think that Ramon Sessions will get it to start the season, but I wouldn't be surprised if Frank steals it from him by December. Frank is an unbelievably good defender for his age. He just turned 19, by the way, and it is effort on this end and his incredible length that make him this good. In his first preseason game, Ntilikina was putting in more effort than any other player on the defensive end, chasing guards through screens and using his long arms to harass shots and passing lanes. He also impressed me a lot when D'Angelo Russell threw a pump fake on the three-point line and Frank stayed down and assumed defensive position in front of him after closing out. Most rookies fall for their first few fakes, and you can see the years of professional training and film watching on the defensive end in action here. Frank has also impressed me a lot on the offensive end. He plays well within the offense and looks to push the ball in transition to the open guy. But when the half-court set comes in, you can see him surveying the court looking for a potential mismatch on the block or for the open man coming off of a screen. But if these options aren't there, Frank has already shown in European leagues and in training camp scrimmages that he can run the pick and roll to some effect. He's fantastic at coming off of the screen and assessing the situation. He knows when to look for his pull-up jumper or the floater and when to pass to the roller or the big man fading out to the three-point line. And this type of guard is absolutely perfect for the Knicks, as they desperately need a guard to pair long-term with Kristaps Porzingis. And whilst Kristaps is the kind of big man who could play with almost any type of guard, he is so talented that the Knicks will want to find players who understand this and adapt their game to get the most out of KP. And Frank is a guy who could develop to do this. He's already demonstrated that he knows when to hit Porzingis on the pick and pop for three, and if the two of them can run a pick and roll together, that combined length will make it exceptionally easy to get a look at the rim. And sure, Frank won't dominate straight out of the gate, but he could surprise a lot of people as he calmly runs this Knicks team. He won't be relied on to score, but simply set up and distribute to a Knicks team that actually has quite a bit of scoring power. KP, Enes Kanter, Tim Hardaway, Doug McDermott, and Courtney Lee can all score the basketball, and Frank will share the court with them. I think he'll fit into this role well and gain a lot of experience as he isn't relied upon to take 15 shots a game. Rather, just play defense, handle the basketball, and distribute it to players who have a mismatch or a good opportunity. And in the long term, I really like Frank for this team as well. If the Knicks shoot for a top pick this year, they'll have a shot at picking up Luka Doncic, a European player who would fit perfectly in Phil Jackson's European dream basketball team. He would also fit perfectly alongside Frank, two big guards that play a team brand of basketball, can shoot threes, run pick and rolls, and are versatile defenders. And Frank's ability to guard ones and twos would fit perfectly alongside Doncic and allow him to play the point guard on offense and the shooting guard on defense. The more and more I consider the Knicks and Doncic, the more and more I love the fit. He'd slot in so nicely with our roster and would bring even more versatility, passing, and shooting to a young roster that will end up packed with it. And overall, Frank is a smart pick, a team-first guy who can bring value to the Knicks in the short and long term. I wouldn't be surprised for him to develop a lot as the season goes along, win the starting spot, and potentially make a late charge as one of the best rookies in the year. And the Knicks as a franchise have an incredibly exciting future, packed with young talent and the potential to gain even more in this year's draft. So keep an eye on them and Frank Ntilikina. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, be sure to hit the like button. And if you want to see more NBA videos this coming season, be sure to subscribe down below if you haven't already.